Hello, good morning. I don't know if we should wait 2 minutes for other people, or if I should start right now.
I think that you can start.
Okay, so I will share my my screen. Okay, do you see the presentation? Okay, thank you. So welcome at this like 2 blocks of sociology lectures about quantitative textual analysis. My name is Martin Hayek. I'm from Department of Sociology, Faculty of Social Sciences, and I'm doing these lectures because I used to use quantitative textual analysis in sociology as well as qualitative, but these lectures will be about quantitative. In the first lecture today, I will talk about general approach of textual analysis in sociology, the modern one or the recent one, and I will illustrate this approach on data from the website I'mAmigrant.org. This example is made especially for this class. And in the second week, the next week, I will share my experience with my research, with quantitative analysis of biographical narrative. So in the second lecture, I will talk about my own experience, my own research. In this lecture, it will be like general approach and example of one type of analysis. If you have any question during the class, please just ask. Don't raise your hand in Zoom, because I am focused on the presentation and I'm just forgetting the world around me. Just ask, don't hesitate to interrupt me, and I will be very glad to start discussion, to explain anything more in detail or to repeat it. And the lecture is recorded, so it will be available after for revisiting it and studying from it. So first, I have to say that for sociology, quantitative data are nothing foreign. Since beginning, sociology dealt with qualitative data, use qualitative data. The famous study of one of the founder of sociology, Emil Durkheim, was about suicide, and he used demographic statistics about different rates of suicide in different periods and for different groups, religious groups, like citizens of different countries. And he inferred findings, interpretation from statistics of these demographic data. So quantitative data are nothing new, but primary data in sociology are not textual ones. Sociology use, as in the case of Durkheim, socio-demographic data, as age, education, residence, etc. Also, they use data about opinions, for example, opinion survey, political affiliations. What do you think about something, about attitude, how you approach your neighbors, and who would be preferable neighbor, etc. And about behavior, for example, do you go to church once a week or never, etc. So these data are not textual ones. And if textual data enter into analysis, it's often or mostly in form of answers to open-ended questions in survey questionnaire. For example, what do you feel is the most important issue facing the world today? Or what is your preferred place for a trip? Or so these are open-ended questions, and they are coded, and after they are further analyzed. So they are not analyzed as such, the text, but first the natural text is transformed into codes, and next codes are counted and entering the statistical analysis. And the coding textual data is a powerful step because it transforms naturally occurring data into analytical data that can be, we can do various procedures with it, but also it is origin of several problems. And I mentioned two kinds of problems that are related to coding. It means transforming natural language data into coded categories. The first problem is problem of validity. So it means that does codes reflect, does code or do codes reflect well the coded text? And the second problem is problem of reliability or intercoder reliability. If we have the question, what do you feel is the most important issue facing the world today? The problem of validity would be that some people would respond, I think the most important or the most urgent problem is climate change. And other people would say, I think the most important problem is global warming. And how to code these two answers, because climate change and global warming are perceived by respondents and two different things, or we can suppose, but we code it as one category because climate change and global warming are interrelated. It's like two terms for the same thing, but we don't know if we code it together as one code. For example, we can code it like climatic issues. We don't know if people who said climate change and people who said global warming meant the same thing. It is same with, for some people, the problem can be rising prices, that the most urgent problem they face or the world face today is rising prices. For other people, it could be inflation, and it's the synonym. Rising prices and inflation are synonyms, but we don't know why some people say rising prices and other people say inflation, if it's just the level of education or they perceive it as different things. So this is problem of validity, and problem of reliability is that 2 or 3 coders can code it differently. And this was just like a simple example, but I would like to illustrate the problem of validity and reliability in more detail. And I selected also to illustrate the history of using text or history of textual analysis in sociology and social sciences, quantitative textual analysis. And I would like you to mention or to explain the first computer-aided content analysis, first program for quantitative textual analysis that I know, and the name was the General Inquirer, and it was developed in 1966, in 1960s, and it counted words in general. We can say that it was some computer-assisted content analysis. In sociology, that is a good note. In sociology, quantitative or textual analysis are often called as content analysis because it is supposed that texts are like containers that they have content in it, and the analysis is revealing the content of these textual messages. That's why it's called content analysis. And there is qualitative content analysis and quantitative one. And quantitative content analysis is counting words in general. And the General Inquirer was a program then that was capable of counting words, but not only individual words. Also, it has special routines for disambiguation, word disambiguation, or meaning disambiguation. So it wasn't just a stupid program for counting words. It could do like more sophisticated analysis. But what was important that the program was based on dictionaries, and the coding work that the researcher entered text or corpus, like set of text into the program, and the program contained dictionaries of words, and they classified text according to frequency of certain categories of words. And there is an example of different vocabularies that or lexicons, that there was the positive lexicon that like contained a little bit more than 1,000 positive words, or words considered positive in a dictionary sense. For example, love, peace, etc., happy. And there was a subset of like the half of these words were labeled or tagged as affiliation or indicating affiliation or supportiveness. For example, support, help, etc. So this is positive dictionary, and if you count it, if you have two texts, and for example, two politicians' speeches, and you could count positive words in both of them and compare number of positive words, occurrences of positive words, and you could say how positive are these speeches, or how supportive are, if there is any difference in supportiveness of these speeches. And there were also the negative words, implying strength, also 2,000 words implying strength, and like 700 for power, indicating power. So the analysis could be focusing on like strength of like expressed through these speeches, politician speeches, if they are strong or weak, or the text or textual quality is strong or weak, active or passive. There was I remember one example of interesting research that compared like true suicide letters with fake suicide letters. Like the suicide letters that were found at places or at like in criminal cases, and suicide letters that were written by students or sample of people that were instructed. Please try to write suicide letter if you put in the situation, just imaginary, put you in the situation that you want to commit suicide, and try to write a letter, like the goodbye letter. and so they have these two sets of text, sets of letters, and they carried out the analysis, and they found the differences in the occurrence of various categories of words. And one of the difference that I remember from reading this paper was that the fake letters, the fictive ones, were about about the difficult situation, about problems of people who imagine it they are going to commit suicide, wrote about their problem, that they could not overcome problems, while the the real ones were more about like no future of that, rather like the temporal, the what was important was temporal dimension, not as like problems they face in their life. So this is example how to use dictionaries and how to do analysis analysis through programs like this. The original one, somebody calls it like the mother of computer-aided content analysis. But this approach has some problems with it. First is using the coding and dictionaries. First is lemmatization, that in order to be able to analyze text, you have to transform words to their basic forms, to their lemmas, and analyze lemmas. And lemmatization is never perfect, and especially in small corpus, you have to check it manually or to do some further like controls of lemmatization. This is not as big problem because the advancement of lemmatization is still continuing, and I think it will become almost perfect in the future. But what is more difficult to cope with are tropes, that if somebody says it's normal to lie, it is description or irony. You don't know. It's if it's normal to do something, can be ironical expression that it's not normal, or that it's critique of what is happening. And for some people, it could be just description. And there are many ways how to use various tropes, metaphors, metonyms, and these dictionaries cannot translate, cannot read the text as a human readers. They cannot distinguish irony from the non-irony, or in most cases. Or what is typical also is the contextuality, that in some context, for example, taxes, like taxes people pay or companies pay to state, are considered as good or neutral. In some cases, it is considered bad, that high taxes is problem for some companies, but high taxes can be good for state like officials or government. And you don't know exactly in which context the article or the expression about taxes appear, and who is model reader, who is like the audience, targeted audience. And it's difficult to say if it's neutral or positive or negative, strong and weak, etc. So the problem is this contextuality, with tropes, and also with translation. That these vocabularies are constructed for English language, and people from who are not speaking English, or if we have data, non-English data, how to do it. First, it has to be manually translated or translated like automatically machine translation, it can generate problems of validity, that you code something that is not in the original text. It's in translation and it's not in original text, on vice versa, that it's lost in translation. So these are problems with vocabularies and or vocabulary-based analysis as the general inquirer. And now in the, I think, commercial research, there are many problems, many like analysis done using sentiment analysis, or many companies analyzing text using sentiment analysis. It means if there is positive sentiment, negative sentiment. It means, for example, the company's reports, if they report future as in positive way or negative way. So they are programs for doing sentiment analysis, but always there are problem of this context, metaphor, tropes, that the analysis is frequently failing in discovering the I would say the idea of the content, what is the real content, what is the real sentiment, because of using metaphors, ironies, and contextuality, and various strategies of producing text, writing text. So that was problem of validity, that when you code, you can lose part of information, or you can create artifact. The second problem related to coding is problem of intercoder reliability. And it was believed that the human coders can solve the problem of validity, that if you train coders, like people, they can read text and they can check the automatic coding, or they can code it. And early researchers early discovered that it solved partially the problem. For example, it solved the problem of metaphor, on ambiguousness, ambivalency, problem of context, but it creates new problems. And the new problems are problems of time, that it's really time consuming. If you have, I don't know, 10,000 articles, even if you have 100 coders, it takes time to code all these texts. The problem of training, because you can train 1-2 coders, you can discuss with them and show examples, but to train 100 coders is almost impossible, because there are too many people, different ages, and so they have many questions. So what to do? They are different in terms of as coders, as people reading text. And the last problem is budget, or the last problem, the third practical problem is budget, that you have to pay much for having 100 coders, and they code 1 week for 1 week your text. But even if you have money, even if you can train coders and pay them for 1 week 1 week work, still the problem of intercoder reliability or intercoder agreement exists, because people read differently. They have some like background expectation, what they expect from the text. If they see article in right-wing newspapers, they have the preconception what they should be in the text if it's in the right-wing newspapers. So they code it slightly differently if they knew that it's in the left-wing newspaper. So they have, or also if you have right-wing coder and left-wing coder, they code differently. Finally, you cannot solve the problem of reliability, because no 2 people read the same text in the same manner. And even if you have technical instruction, there still exists problem of disagreement between coders. If this metaphor is meant in that way or another way, if this article is criticizing something or not criticizing, if it's irony or not. So you cannot solve entirely the problem of intercoder reliability. And that's why there exist various measures to measure intercoding agreement. And these measure, for example, Krippendorff alphas. So Krippendorff alpha, they measure agreement, and they are like ranking. And if you achieve I don't know, level of 80, for example, it's enough. And so the reliability is, or the agreement is, never 100%. So there is like a threshold that if you pass this threshold, for example 80, it's enough, and you can continue with the analysis. And if you have less than 80, you have to train coders again and do the same analysis again. That's why this is like very difficult and time consuming and money consuming analysis. So, but this is what is done, what was done, I can say what was done most often. Because of this problem, there were developed new approaches how to do quantitative textual analysis to overcome the problem of coding and dictionaries, to overcome the problem that you have to transform natural occurring data in textual data or natural language into some analytical language, analytical code that can be counted and that can be related to other variables. And also problem of dictionaries, that this transformation is not made like widely. The coding is not wild, that you have like set of pre-created theoretically based dictionaries, and you apply these dictionaries to your original text, and you get codes, analytical codes, which you can work in your analysis. And recently there are attempts how to overcome the problem of this coding approach, coding dictionary approach, and there are three visions or three ways how to do it. And first is not to test hypotheses. For example, is the left-wing politician more assertive than the right-wing politician or not? Or is this newspaper more positive than the other newspaper regarding vaccination, for example? These are testing, and you test hypotheses. You have hypotheses that one newspaper that is right-wing will be less positive when referring to vaccination than the left-wing newspaper, and you test it via coding dictionaries. So now there is like inclination to do rather exploratory research, that you don't ask these questions about testing hypotheses, and you ask what is difference between these two newspapers in terms of reference to vaccination, and you don't expect any relationship. You just do exploratory research. Exploratory research is good in this sense, but it's also weak in a sense that you don't know, that you get some results, but it's difficult to interpret them because you don't have any theory behind it. So the testing research, testing hypothesis research is good because you have a theory. You infer variables from the theory, and you test relationship between variables in your data. So that's fine. And if you prove that there is a relationship, you can say the theory was proven, or this theory holds in this empirical part of the world. While in exploratory research, you have questions and you get large answers which are not related directly to any theory, and you have to find some theory to available for interpreting results of exploratory research. But it's a way how to do textual and quantitative textual analysis. The second manner how to conduct quantitative textual analysis today, or how it is conducted, is based on inductively constructed classification rather than pre-established one. So the dictionaries are not pre-established. You don't have dictionary for active, for passive, for optimist, for pessimist, etc. And you construct your own classification. For example, you take speeches of left-wing politicians, and you extract the most frequent words. You take the speeches of right-wing politicians, and you extract also frequent words or collocations or some attributes, textual attributes from these data, from these samples, and you take your sample that is politician. You don't know if it's right-wing or left-wing or some populist, and you look if it's resemble more, if it's similar more to the right-wing reference sample or left-wing reference sample. And in this way, you don't have any pre-established dictionary. You construct your dictionaries, if I may call it dictionaries. You construct your dictionaries inductively from real existing data, and you compare your sample with these reference corpus. This is the way how we can work, and we don't need to use dictionaries that were pre-established for certain context and doesn't work in another context. It can be the example for politicians for this left-right scale is clear when we take, for example, the US political scene, left wing and right wing. We cannot compare it directly with British or Czech left wing, right wing political scale. They are different, so you cannot use dictionaries that were constructed or built on the US political data and to apply it to Czech data. So it's better to construct these reference samples inductively on Czech data and to use it. And the third way how to get rid of problem of coding and dictionaries is observing the relationship between textual and non-textual data. The example I will show you in the next slide, the book or the research that did exactly that. But the easiest example is to observe, for example, the number of people infected by coronavirus and number of newspaper articles mentioning coronavirus. And you can see if the number of infected is reflected in newspaper, how it is reflected, if number of infected people, when number of infected people is rising, is it reflected in the rise of number of newspapers or not? Perhaps for different periods. For some period, the number of newspapers mentioning coronavirus. So no coding, just looking for counting word coronavirus or corona, etc. So that is rising sharper than number of infected people. And at the end of epidemic, it could be that because people are already tired of reading about coronavirus, or there is another uh, news that is more important, another event which is more important, so that even if a number of people infected is rising, the number of articles is declining. So this is like a simple example of observing relationship between textual and non-textual data, and this is also a way how to do textual analysis in sociology with without coding and dictionaries. And I would like you to to introduce you this book, this research, which is very interesting, and it's quite recent. It's from 2019, and it's about what it does. It combines textual and geographic analysis, because in this course we will talk about geography and about location and there was already mentioned in previous lectures location, geographic space, and textual data. So this is example of such research that combine textual and geographic analysis, and what it aimed to answer or to discover was the nature of representation of poverty in the UK. So through combination of textual and geographic analysis, the authors tried to interpret representation of poverty in the UK, representation in mass media. And how they proceeded, they first constructed the corpus, and they searched for the word poverty in left-wing newspaper Guardian, and in the right-wing newspaper Daily Mail. So they search for articles containing the word poverty, and also such article has to contain or had to contain the name of a locality. And there is example of such sentence. So there is Blackpool, this is the locality, and also word poverty. And if an article contained this sentence or these two terms, it was included into the corpus. And they constructed corpus from articles from these two newspapers for a certain period of time. I don't remember where it was exactly. And the first result, well, they mapped localities that were linked to the poverty, and you can say this is a map of England. The first picture is for Guardian, and the second picture is for Daily Mail. And from the first side, there is no huge difference in terms of density of mentioning some place together with the word poverty. So it means in the central, like metropolitan area of London, there is the highest density of articles mentioned in London and poverty, while in the rest of UK, the density is lower. If you look in detail, we can see that in Daily Mail, there is one cluster here, while in Guardian, this space is empty almost, and there are two clusters around in the vicinity of this cluster. So there are differences in detail that can be explained why it is so, why if this is a region of right-wing supporters and these cities are left-wing supporters. I don't know. It's the matter of explanation. So in exploratory analysis, you have to interpret why it is so. But this is the first result of such analysis. And the second result is collocation analysis. It means which words co-occur frequently with the keyword poverty. And this is only for Daily Mail. And we can see that, so they counted or they extracted most frequent words from articles that contained poverty and locality. And when it contained London as locality, you can see that the most frequent words were 2-1 rate, rich country, protest, Victorian years, and the level of significance of the 0.5%. It's like cereals, bold, kill, poorest, improve, home become during, highs, rose, squad, etc. Nostalgia, and it's for me this is somehow the poverty in the past, because this is the Victorian, the protests, nostalgia. There's also cereals, the depression, great depression. So poorest, this is also one we don't expect that in current London there are poorest people, or so we can say that London, from this short analysis, exemplary analysis, that London and poverty are related through the past. That in Daily Mail, representation of poverty for London is poverty of the past. Look at the rest of the UK, there are words like to risk lowest people left care, we wrote, making fuel families poorer, etc. Ignoring. It is related to, or these words are related to contemporary period. It's something about the poverty like represented now, that people are living now. And the difference is that while the metropolis is, there is no, for the right-wing newspaper, the poverty is related mainly to the rest of the UK, not to London. And the people suffering poverty are in villages, are in countryside, not in London. And this is also interesting result that can be explored more, and also why it is so. Why London is in Daily Mail represented as like non-poor city, even if there are many poor people in London, living in London. Well, this was an interesting example how to lock, or how to combine textual, non-dictionary, non-hypothesis, non-coded analysis with geographic analysis, and to have results about sociologically relevant phenomena. Well, is there any question regarding the this theoretical part? I would say this introduction to the topic.
No.
No. Okay, let's move to the migrant stories analysis, the example that I prepare for this lecture. The basic, or the starting question can be what we can learn about migration from migrant stories. Migrant stories, what it is. There is an example of beginning of a migrant stories, the story of Jonathan, who is from France originally, and who immigrated to Vietnam. And it starts, my life back in France was not a very good experience for me due to many unfortunate incidents in my personal life. I did not feel happy, and was, so there were he begins with reasons for moving, and that it was a distant dream to go to Vietnam, and I had never thought that I would be able to make it happen, and it was a nice surprise, and etc. etc. And the first chapter of my life in Vietnam was not easy at all. However, I could not speak English or Vietnamese. So this is the story, and we have stories and what we can learn from these stories. So there are two approaches um, how to get information, how to analyze them. First is that we can try to understand their experience or migrants' experience from these stories, because we can read them and we can see, we understand what Jonathan is communicating to us, what he is saying about his life, and we can try to understand the migrants' experience by reading individual stories. This would be a hermeneutic or qualitative approach. Hermeneutic in the sense of interpretation of human experience that is somehow expressed through the narrative. The second approach is that we can compare stories of different categories of migrants and observe similarities and differences between them in the sense of like textual qualities. And based on this comparison, we can make inferences about migration in the sense how migration is narrated, what is told in one group of stories and what is not told in another group of stories, or how it is experienced. We can make an assumption that the narration reflects somehow experience. So if we find, therefore, if we find difference in narration, it could be that there are differences in experiences, but it's not 100% sure. We can have different narration of one experience. It depends to whom the story is narrated. Of course, if somebody is telling the story to the immigration officer, the story would be different from telling it to a friend or to a family, someone from the family. But we can make an assumption that in these stories we can learn about how it is experienced as well as narrated. And this is quantitative textual approach, that we don't try to read them and to understand their experience. We calculate, or we analyze them quantitatively, looking for differences, trying making some inference. We don't know which kind of inferences, but some inferences about migration. And we will do this quantitative textual, or we will apply the quantitative textual approach. What are our data? There is a little bit more than 1,000 short biographic narratives of migrants that were published on a website, imamigrant.org site. The web page looks like this one. This is an example screenshot of the web page, because I cannot show you the real web page because the web page is down. Temporarily, it's written that it's temporarily down, but I'm afraid that it's already like 3 weeks that it's down, and it could be forever, so for good. So this is the only way how I can show you the web page. And there are these pictures of migrants with their stories, and there are always the distance they traveled from the country of origin to the country of like target country. current country, and you can search for male stories, female stories, occupations, names, and or country of origin and current country. And if you click, you can see the whole story. This is the web page, and yes, what we can bear in mind that these stories are not authentic stories that were submitted by migrants themselves, like transcripts, exact transcripts of their narrations. They were adapted for publications. They were edited. They were made nice or nice to read by people who collected these stories, or organizations that submitted these stories, and stories were selected by the owner of the site, which is International Organization for Migration, which is a part of United Nations organization, and IOM provides help for migrants. Therefore, the website is not only publication of narratives. The website has educative purpose to like make people understand better the experience of migrants. And I can suppose that if some story was not complying with this educative purpose, it was not included in the website. So we can say that, or we have to say that the sample of stories is not representative. Definitely, it's not representative for all migrants. It's not random sample of migrants on the world in current time, nor it's unbiased. There is a bias introduced by people who selected, who edited these stories, and also it's not representative because some migrants have bigger chance to be published than other migrants that was never in contact with International Organization for Migration have less chances to be included. But it's sample of like large sample of narratives, which is good, and it's heterogeneous, which is also good, because heterogeneity means that it covers various experiences, and we can search what we can learn from this kind of sample. And also, if we do explorative analysis, we don't test any hypothesis. We don't know. For this reason, we don't need representative sampling for exploratory analysis, because we can include our doubts about representativity in our results, in our interpretation. While if we are testing hypotheses, if, for example, male narrators are different from female narrators, we would need representative sample, because in this sample we cannot test the hypothesis. We cannot say if we found differences in word frequencies, for example, that we prove a theory that male participant or male narrators differ from female narrators. That's why it is a good sample for our analysis. How to proceed the data? If we see data on some web page, how to do to make them ready for the textual analysis, quantitative textual analysis. So first, you have to download data from the website, and for this analysis, data were downloaded using wget utility that retrieves all files from the server, from the internet site. So it's a simple utility, and you download all from the web. So it includes HTML files, so web pages, but also other things. So you keep web pages with migrant stories, and you convert them into plain text file. There are like scripts that makes it that makes it possible to convert HTML file into text file. Still, in these text files, you have many different type of textual elements, and you keep just names of migrants to identify them, because there is no ID, only names. You keep countries of origin and destination, and stories. So somebody had to be smart enough to extract only these entities, names, countries, and stories from the text files. And it was done by Jiří Mírovský, and I am grateful to him for doing this analysis that I would not be able to do, to proceed data from website into text files, into large table with stories, names, and countries. And I got this data set of 100 something stories. And what I did myself, that I remove all paratextual elements. Paratextual elements are elements that are not the stories itself. For example, there were sentences, watch Natasha's full story on immigrant stories on another website. And these paratextual elements were included into stories. So it was impossible for like automatically extract them. Therefore, I had to go through all stories and to search for example, these double commas or watch, and I removed this paratext from the stories. It was quite enough of it in it, and it took some time to do it. Even I'm not sure that I removed all of paratext from there were names of people who uploaded it, who submitted it, who collected it, etc. Also, I removed stop words from the analysis, not at this stage, but later on. Stop words are words that has no semantic meaning and are the most frequent words. For example, and or these words that do not end. That if I count them, I don't learn anything about migrants' experience from the presupposition, etc. This was the first like round of cleaning of the text of data. In the second round, I identified gender of narrators, because in the website we have only names. Of course, if I could download pictures and to like recognize picture automatically, and they say male or female, I could do it somehow, but I didn't have anything of this kind available. Therefore, I needed to identify gender through names, and I used the web page gender name finder. I entered the list of the names, and I got gender, but the problem with this gender name finder, is that there are many names that are not included in this database. and there are names that are unisex, that you don't know. For example, Alex can be male and female name. They are inotex. They are unisex. That's why I complemented this semi-automatic identification of gender with manual search. So I went through the non-identified stories, and I googled if the name is male or female, or I read the story to search if there is my husband. It means it's a woman, or my wife. It's a man. And next, I identify for the analysis. I ask question if there is any difference between migrants going from the poor country to rich country, or from rich country to poor country, or from non-rich to non-rich country. And for being able to do this kind of analysis, I identify GDP per capita for all countries. I used United Nations statistics, and I attributed to each country the level of GDP. And also what I did, that I clustered countries into continents for doing analysis of transcontinental and intracontinental migrants. So this was preparing data and variables for the analysis. And yes, about if there is any question, just ask me. I'm not sure if I explain it in too much detail, or if I skip some details that are important for you to understand the analysis. As I said, the analysis will be exploratory, no testing, even if we can have some temptation to test if there are gender differences, and like if for example male stories are shorter than female stories, because females are considered more talkative, whatever. But as I said, the non-coding textual analysis is better suited for exploratory analysis. And if I'm saying that the analysis will be exploratory, all results or interpretations will be like only tentative, just proposals for further research. It's not that we can like say that something is proven through this exploratory analysis. We have to explore more, and to develop better samples, and to check if the sample is representative, etc. And you already know some information about our narrators in gender, but with this caution that some gender is not attributed, then it was impossible to find, or if the name was like unisex, and in the story itself there was any sign of gender. We have original and current country residents, GDP per capita for countries, and from this information I constructed 4 independent variables that enter it into analysis. That we have a group of female migrants and male migrants. We have immigrants and homecomers. Immigrants are narrators that left their country and still live in the country other than their own country, while homecomers are people who left their country, but after some time, 1 month or 10 years, they return to their home country again, and they tell the story of homecomer, not the story of migrant, but story of homecomer. And we can ask if there is any difference between people who still are in the host country and people who return to their home country again. And we have intracontinental and intercontinental migrants. So these two groups, we can ask if somebody is going from Europe to Asia. It's different from migrant who is going from one European country to another European country. Or if there are migrants within Africa, it's also different. Could be different from migrants who are going from Africa to Australia or to Europe or to United States, etc. And we have three groups. This was like dichotomic variables, and we have variable with three three values. Higher, it means migrants who came from who left country with significantly lower GDP per capita, country yes, to country with higher GDP. Equal is more or less the same, and lower is people from high GDP country to low GDP country. And we have a dependent variable. It's the migrant story, and we will search if there is any possibility to explain variability or differences in migrant stories in relationship to these independent variables, female, male, etc. So I will search, or what I did, I searched for any relationship between independent and dependent variables. What kind of impact can gender have on narrators in their stories? This was my aim. Of course, I will not present the whole analysis. I will only limit myself to female-male variable, to gender, because it would take many hours. But I did tentatively all these analysis, and your homework will be to try to do the rest, or to pick one of the others variables and to look if there are differences in migrant stories depending on the group of migrants. The analysis was carried out in R. This is perhaps you know this software environment for statistical computing and graphics. I'm not expert in R. I'm not a statistician in profession, so I was user of R, and I say it to encourage you to become also user of R. It's not difficult to learn, and you can use many like book tutorials, but also video tutorials, and it's not difficult to learn it for doing the simple analysis as I am doing. Of course, if you do some local linear modeling, it becomes more complicated. But for this simple textual analysis, it is not as complicated as you could suppose. And what I did, I used 3 analytical techniques. The simplest one, I ordered it in the level of analytical complexity. I started with word frequency, the easiest way, or the easiest technique. I calculated most frequent semantic words. Semantic words are words that have meaning not entirely depending on its context. Of course, they are also depending on context. The example of a semantic word can be home or school. Of course, the home is depending. the meaning of the word home is depending on context. You can use it in different contexts. One, it means my home country. One, it means my where I live exactly, my home, my house in which, or the apartment and I live. It could mean that a place when I feel safe, or it could mean some position in a game, which we call home. It's the starting position is home. So it depends. Semantic words depend on context, on their context, but not entirely. So if there is word home, we can imagine that it could be in the context of migrant stories. It's referring to country or to place, etc. Or to yes. While if we have word because, we don't. It has no information for us regarding the stories, because we don't know in which phrase it was. What was because of what. So I kept only semantic words, and the rest was the stop words, I could say. And I calculated most frequent one, and it gave me basic information about words through which the migrants expressed their experience. In the second step, I moved to bigrams. Bigrams are frequent pairs of semantic words, collocations, that occur in these narratives. And for example, primary school is bigram or bigram. I don't know if it's pronounced bigram or bigram. And or speak English. This is also something happened. Yes. If yeah, speak English is also bigram. And these bigrams inform us about typical entities. For example, some institutions, that primary school, because if we have just school, we don't know what kind of school. But if we see that there is frequent bigram primary school, it's like more accurate information about this entity, or some processes or competencies like speak English. If we have speak and English separately, we don't know what does it mean if English is related to English as people, English people, or English whatever. But if it is collocated speak English, we know that it's about competence to speak English. And the third technique I used to analyze narratives, this migrant narrative, was identify topic modeling. This is rather complicated analysis in itself, but I take it as like black box. I believe that people who developed this topic modeling did it right, and I use it as like a tool how to identify clusters or some recurring patterns of co-occurring words, not only bigrams, but co-occurring words in the whole narratives. And these patterns are called topics. So that's why it's topic modeling, and it's topic modeling rather than topic identification or topic determining. It's what it does is that it offers hypotheses about possible topics in the text. There is no assumption that all text have to contain topics or can be like differentiated in topics, but there is like assumption that we can model possible topics, and it provides therefore I write it provides information about potential themes or topics in the narrative, and we have to interpret it and to think about it if it's artificial or not. And so the interpretation is not easy, and it's not mechanical. It's up to us on our sociological imagination to pick topics or to consider the analysis useful or not in a particular case. Well, I did this 3 techniques, or implement these 3 techniques, and next we can move to findings. And as I said, exploratory analysis is somehow easier in collecting data because there are not so much demand for quality of data. You can do it on almost all data available. There is not so much requirements for analysis because you can take any analysis you want, any technique you want. You do exploratory analysis and there is not so much requirement for obtaining results, because if you apply any technique on data, you get some results. This is not a problem. It's the same if you are what's the name of people who are doing inspection, if geology inspection, prospectors. If you are prospectors, you are exploring terrain, you are just looking for various stones, and you are digging holes and looking. You find all the time, you find some stones. There is no problem of getting findings. The problem is that there are much more unuseful stones or the raw stones, waste stones, than waste rock, than gold. And to find gold, you have to think, and you have to try to be as imaginative as possible for meaningfully interpret what you find. So this was some precaution, some introduction to interpreting exploratory analysis, that you get some findings, but only part of them, I would say, the minority of them are meaningful or are useful for doing inferences about the migrant narrative, about the research question. What is on these 2 graphs? These are word frequencies. It means the most frequent semantic words, 20 of them, I think, more or less, for male migrants, and the same for female migrants. We see that the most frequent, but very most frequent word is people. So, and in female, sample, the second word is family, next country, home, life, time left, etc., day. In male sample, the second is country, home, life, family, time, field. So it's pretty similar, just the position of family is higher in the female sample, but we can see that the frequency, the difference in frequencies of these very frequent words are not huge, so they are pretty close. So the order is not so important. And next, we see the rest of the terms. There are some words that are not perhaps this I am is I am, the apostrophe is like in don't here, and yes, and you can see that it's not lemmatized, that we have left as the past form of the verb leave. Also don't, etc. That there is together the do and not. It's not 2 words, it's like 1 word. I think it's useful for this kind of analysis because it gives you more information than if you find do and not, which would be stop words, but you see that it's don't, and you can explore it in bigrams, etc. We will see it. And my interpretation for this, for word frequency differences between male and females, is that there is, or my interpretation, if I recapitulate what differences are, there are people that are above all. Next, there is a group of frequent words: family, country, home, lifetime, that is related to the migrant experience. And the rest is the research group, which we can see this, there is a difference between the second group and the rest. And here as well are similar words, but they are in different order. So for male migrant, there is left, job, friends, living, school, children. And for female migrants, it's vice versa. It starts with children, next school, living, job, left, friends. Just friends makes no like symmetry. Like, but we see that this is the only difference in frequent words. And what would be like interpretation of this finding? So we have data, findings, and how to interpret them. First, there are no surprising differences between male and female migrant stories on the level of words. They have quite similar, and if we see that in the female sample there are like the higher frequency, a slightly higher frequency of family words, like family, children, school. It's just because women take care of children more often than male migrants. It's nothing that can surprise us. It's like in normal life. It's not only true for migrants. But what is, I think, enriching about this new information, or what is worth noticing, is that migration is not linked to individuals, but it's linked to families. That family is really very important and very frequent word for both for male and female migrants. So if we think about migration, we have to think about families, not so much about individuals, even if it is individuals that migrate, like individuals alone that migrate. They narrate their experience in relationship to their family, that is that they left their family in their home country, or they joined their family, or they plan to take the family to the new country. But the family is there. You cannot get rid of analyzing or thinking about migration in sociological terms without or excluding the family. And this is one thing that was surprising for me, because if somebody is talking about migrants, I see in my imagination, I see individuals and or like couples, but we can clearly see from the heterogeneous sample of stories that the family is, we can say, migration is about people, and the next is about families, and next is about countries. Even countries can be said that it's on the same level of that people are changing country, and it concerns their families. And also, what was surprising for me, that migrants of both genders express their experience as migrants in similar words. And the question is, for further research, if they share similar experience, or just the stories are similar because they are short stories and they didn't have enough time to elaborate more on their experience, so they just put the main things that I am my name, I left this country, I went to school, etc. There was something that happened, so the question is if the similarity in stories on the level of word frequencies reflects also similarity in experience. We don't know from this analysis. We cannot judge it. Let's move to the high level of complexity, to bigrams, and we have two pictures. It's not a table of bigrams with frequencies. It's like a map picture of them, which I found more interesting because the previous graph was about frequencies. This is about like dispersion, and we can see that in men sample or subsample, the minimal occurrence of bigrams to get into this picture was 9, while for female sample it was 6. So they were less frequent than in male sample. And let's look to this picture. I hope you can read it. So what we can...
I have a question.
Yes,
can I ask a question? So maybe you are going to cover it, but I'm just a little bit like impatient with it.
Yeah.
Is there any system to the way the phrases are located on the graph in relation to each other? So like European Union and Soviet, they are linked, but is there any significance to the fact that it is located to the right from Boko Haram and to the left from Ivory Coast, or is it randomized?
No, I don't think so. I'm not
Okay.
sure. What I thank for the question, because there is like trigram, European Union, Soviet. It doesn't mean that Soviet and European is somehow linked through union. It means that there are two bigrams, but they are showed or they are pictured like they share the union together. So it's not like network. It's just that they
So it's
share
like
this word together.
so European is not connected to Soviet. European
No.
is connected to Union, and Soviet is also connected to Union.
Yes,
And
sure.
then the same like with like program is connected to reintegration. So it's
Yes.
reintegration program and assistance. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
Thank you.
Important. Some it makes sense sometimes. For example, we can see this war cluster. So that war started, war broke, civil war. That it's like revolve around the same meaning or of war, but it doesn't mean that the analysis put it together intentionally. It's just coincidence that they all these bigrams share the word, the term war. And in terms of like axis or dimensions, I don't think there is any dimension. Perhaps there is, but I don't have any information about it. I think it's just dispersion, like random, to see all these bigrams together, like to organize them. So they organize them. So it means that this is not central bigram or degree, master degree. And this is Costa Rica's periphery. It's not that it's more frequent than asylum seekers. It's just to see it together in one picture. And what I would like, so thank you very much for this question. It was clarifying. What I would like to point to is that we can see that don't and feel, because we have word feel as frequent word, and from only word feel we can say yes, it could be about feelings, I feel well, etc. And it is frequently, not always, but frequently it's connected to don't feel. So this is one thing, that it has negative meaning, not feel as we usually assume that feel is about good feeling. Also, there is a comfort zone. It's another example of what we can relate to migrants' experience, and we would not suppose from the word zone and from the word comfort that there is this collocation comfort zone. Similarly, as I already mentioned, speak English. It's interesting. Living condition. There are living, frequent word living, and it's not about that I'm living now in Prague, but there is. It could be, but there is a frequency of living condition term, or talking about living condition. And also military is not that there are war military attacking, but it's military service for men, that they were in military, or they escape military service and they left. And we can see job is related not to holding job, but to job opportunities. And war is about civil war, and that started not about like description of war, but about the temporality of and I think that that's all for men. And to go to women, we have also some interesting like enlargement, or making it more accurate, that we don't feel safe. So it's definitely concrete meaning that it's about experience, not feeling safe. Also comfort zone. It was surprising for me that I found this collocation in these in these stories, comfort zone, and wasn't easy. It's also interesting, and the similar broke civil war. And if I interpret the results of these big REMs, so we can see that we got more precise information about context of some frequent verbs. Of course, not all of them, but especially for it wasn't easy. If you found easy, we seen it's easy. But in the text there are at least 6 occurrences in women that it wasn't easy. So and also there is what we can see, that the narratives describe rather challenging situations and feeling than easy ones. That it's not about being happy. Of course, there are some in the first narrative of Jonathan. It was beginning about the happy moments, but from these pictures we see that there are many problematic things that are expressed in the narratives. And also there are some institutions that we can see, or processes like broke civil war that are discovered from this kind of analysis. And because of time, I have to move. We finish, just wait, we finish it. So it's already I end. Oh, sorry for this. Do you want just in 5 minutes to conclude, or should do you have some class after it? If you can.
I would like you to conclude, to go to the end, to get the
okay. Yeah, fine. So in topic modeling, I discovered 2 topics. One was general topic of migrant experience, and second was topic of war migrants. And it's something that could be explored more in what was the war or close war migrants interpretation. And if I decomposed it in gender terms, the war migrant topic was dominant in female narratives. It was like striking for me that it was reversed, while in the general corpus, the general experience, general migrant topic was predominant. In female migrants, it was warlike topic. So the interpretation could be that there is more war female migrants in the sample, but also that migration is more challenging for women. And now to homework, which is conclusion, that I ask you to carry out your own analysis, exploratory, and comparing these groups, even men and women in different aspects. And you have data available on this website, which you can see, I hope. Yes, they are these groups of stories, and you can use this, or I recommend just, sorry, there is a parenthesis at the end. There is this Vayan toolbox, and you put just you copy the text or upload the text, and next there is, I will do like to show, there are various techniques how you can find frequent terms. There is this is the word map. There are context, bubbles, correlations, and there are more. If you go here, you can look for other. Dreamscape is about geographic location. So just play with the application to find, to explore similarities and differences, and to make a report what analysis you tried, what you have done, and send it to me by email. My email is my name at FSV. As it is at the beginning of the presentation. Yes, and we will discuss our result, your result, in the second lecture in the next week. So I apologize once more for the not being in time, because I was so much deep in the analysis, so I forgot the time, and I'm looking forward to see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Martin. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.